Hey guys, welcome back to your distant learning, reading My Side of the Mountain. We are going to read about 15 minutes probably today. We're going from page 46 to page 54. Please follow along in Bookshare if you can figure it out. If you can't, hopefully we'll work on that on Monday. I got some slides I'll share with you guys as we go. I'm actually just going to put the slides up right now. Bonus, if you guess where I'm at in my background picture, it's a lake around here. It's about 2 hours away. Let's go to share screen. Oh, shoot, where is it? Here we go. So these are the pages we'll be reading. I'm going to put this in presentation mode, and then we'll start. So this chapter is called A Brief Account of What I Did About the First Man Who Was After Me. It sounds like a man's going to be after him. At the edge of the meadow, I sensed all was not well at camp. How I knew there was a human being there was not clear to me then. I can only say that after living so long with the birds and animals, the movement of a human is like the difference between the explosion of a cap pistol and a cannon. So a cap pistol is a little gun that goes pop, and then a cannon is a boom. I wormed towards camp. When I could see the man, I felt to be there. I stopped and looked. He was wearing a forester's uniform. Immediately, I thought they had sent someone out to bring me in, and I began to shake. Then I realized that I didn't have to go back to meet the man at all. I was perfectly free and capable of settling down anywhere. My tree was just a pleasant habit. And this is a ranger uniform. He said a forester. I couldn't really find a good picture of a forester, but it would be similar to these ranger uniforms. So a ranger's up there looking for somebody. I circled the meadow and went over to the gorge. On the way, I checked a trap. It was a deadfall, a figure four under a big rock. The rock was down. Food was a rabbit. And this is a picture of a gorge. So when they say a gorge, it's a two steep walls with a river through it. And a deadfall is a type of trap where a rock falls on an animal. They set up a trap and he caught a rabbit. I picked a comfortable place just below the rim of the gorge where I could pop up every now and then and watch my tree. Here I dressed down the rabbit and fed Frightful some of the more savory bits from a young falcon's point of view. Remember, Frightful is his falcon. The liver, the heart, the brain she ate in gulps. As I watched her swallow, I sensed a great pleasure. It is hard to explain my feelings at that moment. It seemed marvelous to see life pump through that strange little body of feathers, wordless noises, milk eyes, much as life pumped through me. The food put the bird to sleep. I watched her eyelids close from the bottom up and her head quiver. The fuzzy body rocked, the tail spread and steadied it, and the little duck hawk almost sighed as she sank into the leaves sleeping. I had lots of time. I was going to wait for the man to leave, so I stared at my bird, the beautiful details of the new feathers, the fern-like lashes along the lids, the saucy bristles at the base of the beak. Pleasant hours passed. Frightful would awaken. I'd feed her, she'd fall back to sleep, and the breath I'd watch the breath rock her body ever so slightly. I was breathing the same way, only not as fast. Her heart beat much faster than mine. She was designed to her bones for a swifter life. It finally occurred to me that I was very hungry. I stood up to see if the man were gone. He was yawning and pacing. The sun was slanting on him now, and I could see him quite well. He was a fire warden. Of course, it had not rained, I told myself, for almost 3 weeks, and the fire planes have been circling the mountains and valleys, patrolling the mountains. Apparently, the smoke from my fire was spotted, and a man was sent to check it. I recalled the bare, trampled ground around the tree, the fireplace of rocks filled with ashes, the wood chips from the making of my bed, and resolved hereafter to keep my yard clean. So I made a rabbit soup in a tin can I found at the bottom of the gorge. I seasoned it with wild garlic and Jack in the Pulpit roots. I took some images of these things. This is the wild garlic. It has a white flower in these leaves, and you pull it up, and it's kind of like a little bulb. It's not quite as big as the garlic you get at the store. And this is the Jack in the Pulpit. So this thing is the pulpit, and this little bud sticking up here is called the Jack. And then he goes into it. I guess you eat these roots right here, and they taste like potatoes, supposedly. Jack in the pulpits have three big leaves on a stalk, and you see one, two, three, and are easily recognized by the curly striped awning above a stiff, serious preacher named Jack. The Jack in the Pulpit root or corm tastes and looks like a potato. Should never be eaten raw. So this is what he's talking about. The Jack, this is the pulpit. Okay, it's like a preacher used to stand at like a podium and preach. There's a roof over it. So these taste like potatoes, but you can't eat them raw, he says. The fire I made was only of the driest wood, and I made it right at the water's edge. I didn't want a smoky fire on this particular evening. After supper, I made a bough bed and stretched out with Frightful beside me. Apparently, the more you stroke and handle a falcon, the easier they are to train. I had all sorts of plans for hoods and jesses, as the straps on a falcon are called, and I soon forgot about the man. And this is what he's talking about. This is a falcon hood. Right here, it covers their eyes so they don't get freaked out. Birds are easily startled, so if you keep a little hood on them, they won't try to fly away so much. And these are called jesses. This one's made out of just like string, but usually they're made out of leather. I guess these are probably the jesses up here on the claws. Okay, stretch. Let me see where we are here. I soon forgot about the man. Stretched on the boughs, I listened to the wood pewees calling their haunting good nights until I fell sound asleep. And one thing about this book, it has a lot of like birds and plants that I never really heard of. So here is that wood pewee. It makes a noise like that. They sing to each other, and they're just like these little birds here. Okay. So wood pewee. If you ever see that in the woods, you'll know it's called a wood pewee. Okay, let's go on. In which I learned to season my food. So this is the next chapter there. The fire warden made a fire some time in the colder hours of the night. At dawn, he was asleep beside white smoldering ashes. I crawled back to the gorge, fed frightful rabbit bits, and slipped back to the edge of the meadow to check a box trap I had set the day before. I made it by tying small sticks together like a log cabin. The trap was better than the snares or dreadfalls. It caught numerous rabbits, several squirrels, and a groundhog. I saw, as I inched toward it, it was closed. The sight of a closed trap excites me to this day. I still can't believe that animals don't understand why delicious food is in such a ridiculous spot. Well, this morning I pulled the trap deep into the woods to open it. The trapped animal was light. I couldn't guess what it was. It was also active, flipping and darting from one corner to the next. I peeked in to locate it so that I could grab it quickly behind the head without getting bitten. I was not always successful at this and had scars to prove it. Put my eyes to the crack. A rumpus arose in the darkness. Two bright eyes shone, and out through the hole that was no wider than a string bean came a weasel. He flew right out at me, landed on my shoulder, gave me a lecture that I shall never forget, and vanished under the scant cover of trillium and bloodroot leaves. And these are the trillium. They're like these white purple flower, and these are the bloodroot leaves. So that weasel jumped out and it kind of like disappeared down here in all these leaves, these two different types of plants. And there's a picture of a wild weasel if you are wondering what a weasel looks like. He popped up about 5 feet away and stood on his hind feet to lecture me again. I said, "Scat!" So he darted right to my knee, put his broad furry paws on my pants, and looked at me in the face. I shall never forget the fear and wonder that I felt at the bravery of that weasel. He stood his ground and berated me. I could see by the flashing of his eyes and the curl of his lips that he was furious at me for trapping him and talk, but I knew what he meant. Wonder filled me as I realized he was absolutely unafraid. No other animal, and I knew quite a few by now, had been so brave in my presence. Screaming, he jumped on me. This surprised and scared me. He leapt from my lap to my head, took a mouthful of hair and rustled it. My goosebumps rose. I was too frightened to move. Good thing, too, because I guess he figured I was not going to fight back. And his screams of anger changed to a purr of peace. Still, I couldn't move. Presently, down he climbed, as stately as royalty, and off he marched, never looking back. He sank beneath the leaves like a fish beneath the water. Not a stem rippled to mark his way. And so, the Baron and I met for the first time, and it was the beginning of our harassing but wonderful friendship. So I named this little guy the Baron. A Baron is like a royal person, so he thought that this weasel looked very royal in appearance, so I named him Baron. Frightful had been watching all this. She was tense with fright. Although young and inexperienced, she knew an enemy when she saw one. Picked her up and whispered into her birdie-smelling neck feathers, "You wild ones know." Since I couldn't go home, I decided to spend the day in the marsh down the west side of the mountain. There were a lot of cattails and frogs there. Remember, cattails were like those hot dog on a stick looking plants. Frightful balanced on my fist as we walked. She had learned that in the short span of one afternoon and a night. She is a very bright bird. On her way, we were scared up a deer. It was a doe. I watched her dart gracefully away and said to Frightful, "That's what I want. I need a door for my house, tethers for you, and a blanket for me. How am I going to get a deer?" This was not the first time I had said this. The forest was full of deer, and I already had drawn plans on a piece of birch bark for deadfalls, pit traps, and snares. None seemed workable. The day passed, and the early evening we stole home, tree by tree, to find the warden had gone. I cleaned up my front yard, scattered needles over the bare spots, and started a small fire with dry wood that would not smoke much. No more wardens for me. I liked my tree, and although I could live somewhere else, I certainly did not want to. Once home, I immediately started to work again. I had a device I wanted to try. I put some hickory sticks in a tin can and set it to boiling while I fixed dinner. Before going to bed, I noted this on a piece of birch bark. This night I am making salt. I know that people in the early days got along without it, but I think some of these wild foods would taste much better with some flavoring. I understand that hickory sticks boiled dry leave a salty residue. I am trying it. In the morning, I added, "It is quite true. The can is dry and thick with a black substance. It is very salty, and I tried it on frog's legs for breakfast. It is just what I have needed." They like put sticks in a can and cooked them, and then there was like black ash that I guess is salty. I tried looking it up on the internet, and I couldn't find anything really saying that was true or not. So I'm not sure if this is fact or fiction. Couldn't find any hard proof. And so I went into the salt production for several days and chipped out a niche inside the tree in which to store it. June 19th. I finished my bed today. The ash slats work well and are quite springy and comfortable. The bed just fits in the right-hand side of the tree. I have hemlock boughs on it, but hope to have deer hide soon. I am making a figure-4 strap as tall as me with a log in it I can barely lift. Doesn't look workable. I wish there's another way of getting a deer. June 20th. I decided to dig a pit to trap a deer, so I am whittling a shovel of a board I found in the stream this morning. Remember, whittling is like where they sit there and carve kind of with a knife. That was in another video we had. The stream is very useful. It has given me 10 cans for pots and now an oaken board for a shovel. Rifle will hop from the stump to my fist. She still can't fly. Her wing feathers are only about an inch long. I think she likes me. All right, guys, we're going to stop there today. Remember, watch the whole video all the way through. Click on the quiz. It will be in the description of this video, but you have to be logged into your Google account in order for me to be able to save it and give you a grade. If that's too hard, go to the Google Classroom and I will attach it to this assignment. But you have to click on it and then fill out the quiz. Don't just hit turn in. You have to take the quiz first and then turn it in at the end after you take it. All right, guys, we'll see you on Monday at 2 for our check-in.